Welcome Capricorn to your in-depth monthly horoscope for January 2024 for the Sun or the Ascendant. I'm going to give you some standout details to look out for, but please stay with me. I will explore in much greater detail all the ins and outs particularly relevant to your sign. Now, the new moon, which occurs on the 11th in your sign, is a superb opportunity to springboard forwards any new ideas you have or to put extra energy into the ongoing strands that are important to you. You may also be considering your personal appearance and hitting the sales to grab some bargains to add to your wardrobe. But both Uranus and Jupiter in your 5th house, which is very much to do with showcasing your talent, are both beautifully linked to that particular event. So I can't wait to share more of that with you. As we make our way into year 2024, if you would like to understand what this will mean for you in a totally individual way and ascend above this zodiac broadcast, please give me 3 pieces of your birth data of time, date and place, or date and place if you don't know your time, and I'll produce for you your 12-month forecast. This will be a full 12 months from the time of your order, unless you order in the latter part of 23, and I'll give you the rest of that year for free. But along with your 12-month forecast, which will give you searing insights, you can also get your character analysis report, your life roadmap. That gives you a much more intimate understanding of the influences that have played out in your whole life and how you can work with them. Also, you'll get your zodiac forecast for each of the 12 signs, your Indian Vedic forecast and your Chinese forecast for year 2024, all free of charge. Please see the link beneath this video for more. So Capricorn, as January begins, so the Sun as always is in your sign, but it's still in touch with Jupiter. If you recall, on the 27th of December, they were in an exact trine. Jupiter was, of course, in its retrograde. That finished on the 31st of December. So as you come into this new year, there is still a sense of optimism because that's what Jupiter is about. Especially in the 5th house, this is where we can dazzle people with our special abilities and the power of our personality. If you are someone who tends to be a little bit more reserved, this will give you added confidence. But whatever type of goat you think you are, this particular influence could prove quite fortunate for you right throughout year 2024. But also, as we start this new year, the moon is in your Earth colleague of Virgo, but it's also in an opposition with your ruling planet of Saturn. So I think it is going to be important to choose words carefully because there could be some sensitive subjects and topics that do still need to be worked through. Part of the reason for that is that Venus is in your 12th house. That can make us very reflective. It could even mean that you're feeling very nostalgic. You could be thinking about people who've departed or people or someone you were once connected to in a more romantic way. But the position of Saturn is asking you to think very realistically about any thoughts you may have, especially in that opposition with the moon. If there is someone that you're drawn to, perhaps at this stage it's a bit more of a confidential connection, perhaps even clandestine. Just be aware of the downside as well as what's pulling you towards this particular person. But also Mercury and Mars are in Sagittarius along with Venus, and that too is your 12th house, which can be tender, and it's clashing, both of them, but particularly Mercury through to the 12th, with the drifting dreamy energies of Neptune in your sector of thinking. Your communication with neighbours and siblings could be a little bit off. Perhaps there's some old stuff that you're wanting to ventilate, and it's about choosing the right choice of words in order to put your message across as succinctly as you can. But the great news is that Mercury does step forwards from its retrograde on the 2nd. As we know, When retrogrades come to a close, it does ease things, but it won't be until the 14th, when Mercury returns to your sign, that you really feel that you're back in the present. And also then on the 21st, Mercury emerges from its post-retrograde shadow. So something that's perhaps proved to be a little bit challenging around a sensitive topic will find its way unraveling to a conclusion by that time. But on the 4th, Mars moves into Capricorn. Now, your sign loves Mars. Mars, of course, is very much about hustle and bustle, action. It can be very decisive. It can be about our desires. And in your sign, it's asking you to think about your individual needs. And because that lineup of planets at the start of the year were in the 12th house, very tender, but also an area where we can be more attuned to worry, I feel that you are going to feel much more self-possessed and confident. But from the 7th through to the 17th, Mars forges a stunning link with Jupiter. If we think that Mars is about thrust and Jupiter's about expansion, when they're collaborating together well, in this case in two earth signs in a trine, that suggests that whatever you try, if you have confidence in what you're looking to achieve, there's a very strong chance you can pull off a success. So really exciting energy. Now, I told you before about the new moon. The new moon arcs from your sign over to Uranus. Now, in fact, the Sun and Uranus have actually been in a pretty good relationship over the last couple of years as you've gone into each new 12-month period. But here, because the new moon's involved, Uranus can be a tricky influence. It is in retrograde till the 27th, but it's asking you to really be in touch with what makes you feel really passionate. So you're someone with a great appreciation of the tasks and roles that you should fulfill because you're dutiful. But this is asking you to perhaps be a little bit more on the wild side. And if you are someone who's really interested in something that's a bit more passionate or artistic or puts you out there a little bit more, really do go for it, because along with that brilliant connection between Mars and Jupiter, which peaks on the 12th, you have an enormous boost of energy here to drive you forwards for the following month. I mentioned before that Mercury returns to your sign on the 14th. It left on the 23rd of December. So it may be that it was a little bit more of a period between Christmas and New Year when you did need a little bit more time to yourself. Perhaps you were doing some journaling, perhaps resting, perhaps getting out into the countryside and just really having some peaceful moments. But Mercury moving into your sign to join up with Mars, the Sun, and of course the powerful Pluto is quite the alliance, and it's given you so much permission to really demonstrate your authentic and your individual take on life. So although you have a reputation of maintaining the status quo, this start to the year, once you get over that initial period of inertia, I feel, that may just be biting in at the start of the year, there's a lot of traction building up for you. Now, the 20th is probably one of the most important days I can remember for you, since you had that collection of planets in your sign, Saturn, Pluto and Jupiter, 2 or 3 years ago. And it's because the Sun and Pluto are exactly conjunct, so tied together as we see it from planet Earth, in the latest minutes of the latest degree of your sign. And this particular influence is not going to be repeated again for many, many, many years. You and I won't be here to witness it. So it's a symbolic link because Pluto's been in your sign since 2008. Now, it just depends how many planets you have in Capricorn, just how much of an impact it's had. You may have some other angular planets, say in Aries, Cancer, and Libra, and therefore you may have felt its influence even more keenly. But if you have found the whole journey of Pluto through the sign of Capricorn very challenging, What I would like you to do, and I think this is true of all the signs, is to reflect on how you as an individual have grown and changed since 15 years ago. And then later that day, the sun moves into the sign of Aquarius, which, like your sign, is ruled by Saturn, but Aquarius has another ruler, another co-regent, that more dramatic energies of Uranus. And what we get is on the 21st, the sun and Pluto are together, newly arrived in Aquarius. Particularly significant because Pluto was discovered on the 21st of January, so it's his birthday. It's going to come back to your sign on the 2nd of September to the 19th of November for one last sojourn, but this is where it's going to be for 38 weeks of this year. It's a big amount of time, and I feel that it's going to see you approaching your resources, but also your sense of self-worth in a radically different way. It may not happen straight away. There may be a period where you need to adjust. Pluto can work in a conscious way. In other words, we can know about it, look out for the signs and go with it. Or it can create situations which we don't choose that we can find very painful. But then when we've been through them, we realise that actually there was a bigger reason why this tiny entity was actually stirring things up in the deepest part of our psyche. So it's very much about what you eat and drink as well. Could there be some improvements there? Some big changes coming, and obviously I'll be keeping you updated throughout year 2024. Now, I mentioned before about Mercury squaring with Neptune, and Venus with Saturn, and Mars with Neptune too, right at the start of the month, but with Mercury through to the 12th. Well, from the 17th to the 23rd, it's Venus's time to square up to Neptune. If there is someone you're intrigued by, a mysterious person, but you can't quite get to the bottom of what they're really about, they're available, they're not available. It's a bit baffling. Is this the kind of story that's playing out? Well, at this point in the month, you would have some big decisions to make, because maybe this person isn't as available as you need. Maybe it's you that's not had as much clarity about what you want from your love life as you could. But if something has been painful around a relationship, I feel that when Venus moves into your sign on the 23rd, you're really going to come to a point when you can draw a bit more of a line in the sand. Again, move into the moment. So you're going to have at this stage the wonderful combination of Venus and Mars in your own sign. So perfect if you are wanting to give yourself some kind of glamorous makeover, strut your stuff, and really impress people with your dynamism. You can be very patient, very applied. You work through situations in a systematic way. When lots of other people get knocked off course, you're still patiently moving towards your targets and goals. I think what Venus and Mars are saying to you is that if you need to inject some more colour, texture and contrast in your approach, they're asking you to show that much more devilment. But the Sun does square in Aquarius with Jupiter from the 24th to the 29th. Do you know, the lovely thing about this aspect is it could make you very generous. So, for example, if you do visit a sale and you see something there that you feel would fit a offspring or a partner, the chances are you're going to want to snaffle it for them, even if you had said to yourself that you're going to be a little more careful with your resources. But it's also important not to overgive, but then, as I'm fond of saying, better to be generous to a fault than mean. But you may find that if there is someone that you're interested in romantically and you're wanting to buy them some kind of big gesture gift, it might not have the desired effect. I think it's probably better to just keep working on building up the knowledge of one another, and particularly if your values align. I think it's a very old-fashioned concept these days for a lot of people. People are very aligned by perhaps their beliefs, and also perhaps the way they dress or their interests. All those things hugely important. But values is is a great thing to have in common, because when things do get tough in any relationship, friendship, family member, or in a romantic alliance, having those shared values means that we can at least understand someone's frustrations, even if we don't always agree with them. Which brings us to the full moon of the 25th. The moon in the glamorous Leo, facing up to the sun in its coolest part of its annual transition. So it's in detriment in Aquarius. So can be obviously in Aquarius very applied to humanities, groups, and so forth. But for you in the second house, it's asking you to think about your longer term future around resources. But Jupiter is T-square in both positions. So once more, you could be tempted to splash out a little bit, but Pluto will be there just quietly calling in the background to be conscious of what your motives are, and also what the motives are of those who may be seeking financial aid or help from you. So maybe you're going to do something for a really good cause or help someone out towards the end of this month. You could feel quite flamboyant. If you do go out, the chances are you're going to want to enjoy some good food and good wine and make merry, even at this late stage in January, when often people hunker down in the northern hemisphere and don't venture very far beyond those winter sales, where you could surprise yourself by wanting to get a little bit more interactive. But I think that there may be some rebalancing that does need to go on between your daily budget, your daily values, your long-term plan, and where you're most invested with someone else, particularly if it is in a more romantic context. It's been a real pleasure being with you, Capricorn. I'd like to wish you all the very best for year 2024. If you'd like to have a one-to-one with me, please see the link beneath this video, or please like, comment, share, or subscribe.